If you stop frying your brain, you can take away the pain.
We're just going to get some more people on here before we start. Yes, filter. By the way, I have two people in my office right now who I'm going to call up to answer some questions you may have. They don't know it yet. Is it coming through clear? Hi, Dave Foose. I'm only calling you out because you hate when I do it. Just going to share this real quick, guys. All right. So it's been about like 3 weeks since we went live on anything, and I ask you first if you guys can please share this. If you're tuning in, if you like what I'm saying or don't like what I'm saying, it's okay either way. I don't have all the answers. One thing I do know is that I don't know everything, and when I think I know everything is when you'll probably find me looking for treatment myself. So again, we're going to talk about loving our addicts to death, and I mean that literally. Sometimes, unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where we try to save people we love. We try to cure them, and that's not possible. We cannot play God, and we cannot expect any human power to relieve anybody from this disease. So while you're on here, guys, let me know where you're from, what state you're from, and if you want to, you know I'm not anonymous. If you guys want to put a sobriety date down, whether you're an Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, AA, NA, whatever it may be, just to show somebody there's hope. I want to thank everybody who was a part of the first part of enabling. I think we're at 21,000 views and 520 shares. So I'd like this one to go too. All right, so I'll start off with some of my background. A lot of you guys know I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, and I'm just a guy in recovery who lived on both sides. Someone who's affected by another person either in recovery or actively using in my family. I've had several deaths from this disease that has affected me, and I speak solely from experience. So please get that. I only speak from experience. Mike Ostis is watching. I don't know why. He's right next to me. Hey, Josh Duckworth. Get some more people on here real quick. Thanks from Indiana. Marietta. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. Boston. So, loving, we call it your addict to death. So I get a lot of family members who will call me and ask me, how do I cure my son? It ranges from that all the way up to, I wish my kid would die so I can find some peace and closure. And neither are the answers. There's no answer for that. What you can do is this. Okay, so let's have an example real quick, and this one comes across all the time. My son or daughter, husband, wife, whatever it may be, they're asking me for money. I know they're actively using, but they're saying it's for rent or it's for food. What do? Do I give them the money? So again, from experience, I'll tell you this. It's not for food. It's not for rent. And if it is, I ask that you give them a gift card or actually go to the landlord and pay yourself. My number one trigger was a $20 bill for some reason. As soon as I seen the $20 bill, it reminded me of Percocet, which was the cost of the pill back when I was using. And then, you know, every time I went from, you know, orally taking the drug to sniffing it, I would roll up money, and that was a trigger. And then ultimately it went into using. And a lot of people don't understand that it comes with a ritual. So for me, my ritual when I started shooting heroin was, you know, just sitting in my truck, which I was living in for a while. I would sit in my truck, and I actually enjoyed being in the company of my favorite thing in the world, the love of my life, which was heroin. all the way from the needle to, it gets graphic. All the way from the needle to the process and then the feeling after. And a lot of people think that we're chasing that feeling. I want to get that straight now. We're not chasing that feeling. We're chasing a feeling that covers up emotional distress. So for me, I have anxiety, depression. My career as an active alcoholic and drug addict, I've burned a lot of bridges. I've hurt a lot of people. Having said that, that caused a lot of shame. And heroin was the one thing that could get rid of it. Now, the ones that I loved the most were the ones that I hurt the most. Why? Because they're the ones that I could manipulate. I could pretty much say anything I wanted to say in order to get what I needed, which was the money. I went as far as my grandmother, who lost her son to this disease. I came up with this long story that I needed to get high in order to get into detox. And the same woman who found her son dead of an overdose handed me pills, to which were the same pills that killed her son, thinking it was for the better of me and my recovery, when really I was just using that as an excuse. So back to the question. Loved one asked you, I need $20, $40, whatever it may be, for whatever the excuse is. The most powerful word you can ever have as the family member of an addict is the word no. It hurts. As I said in the first video, the most painful thing I ever felt in my chest was when I was told no and they meant it, when I was like, oh man, so now what do I do? And I had all my resources, my so-called lifelines, I call it survival of the sickest, to where if all else failed, mom and dad, girlfriend, wife, fiance at the time, whoever it was, I always could rely on them supporting my drug habit. Once that was cut off, it is a very dangerous thing, because you're going to say, well, I can't cut my kid off, they're going to end up homeless. The harsh reality of it is, I say good, because it wasn't until my father told me to get out. My father was my best friend. My mother told me she couldn't see her son in me anymore. My kids weren't allowed around me, and I found myself completely with myself. And that was pretty much the bottom I needed. And, the bottom isn't losing materialistic stuff. It's not. We're used to that. We're used to getting things and losing them over and over again. The bottom for the addict to want help is a spiritual and emotional bankruptcy, a suicide, where you literally have no emotion left and no desire to want to live. I remember the last day I used, May 13th, 2014, I was writing my letters to my kids and my family saying goodbye. And I was so excited that I got to die that day. I was so looking forward to overdosing and not hearing the trembling voice of my mom, or seeing the tears in my kids' eyes, or another employee firing me, telling me you had so much potential but you're a junkie. For all that to be over, I was very excited. It sounds sick, but it was the truth. So I had to get to a point where mom and dad, everyone I loved, said no. And again, does that mean that your child or loved one may be homeless or without? Yes. Does that cause, any type of, situation where they may be found somewhere, or they may, get in the wrong group of people? Well, they're not already on a winning streak. So I knew when they said no to me, all my drug dealers, all my so-called friends were already memorized in my head. I had all their phone numbers memorized. They were the only people I associated with. And it got so bad that my dealer even told me, I can't sell anymore to you. I've grown to like you and you're going to kill yourself. So the word no is very strong. But I'm not the guy who's going to sit here and say no, wish them luck, and move on with your life, because we know that's not possible. So what steps do you take after you say no? This is a family disease. So we have 21 million people out there, approximately, that's the number that they came up with one day, who are actively using alcohol or drugs. You times that by 5, that's the average number of family members and Americans who are affected by it. So we're close to around 100 million people in America who are affected by a disease that is stigmatized and frowned upon, which makes zero sense to me. So once you tell your loved one no, these are the steps you take. And as I said, it's a family disease. You yourself have to get into a program. I know they say suggest it, but I'm telling you, please get into a program, whether that be Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, Celebrate Recovery, whatever it is. I say any pathway that's going to get you out of the hell you're in works, then do it. I know my mother did Al-Anon. She started a family group on Facebook. She advocates at local churches. So she had to find that path, because at one point she hated the disease because it took her brother from her, and then it was killing her son. So she's also experiencing a program of healing herself, and I think she's getting to the point now, and I'm sure she's watching here, a point now where she can say she sleeps at night, and my disease isn't making her life unmanageable anymore. So you say no. That's not the end of it. What I encourage people to say, and I got friends like Tim Ryan right now, I encourage you guys to follow Tim Ryan. He's a dear friend of mine. I love him to death, who will also help any family members. You tell them no, but you let them know, like, listen, I'm going to go educate myself about your disease because it's affected our family. I'm here to tell you that I love you. I hate your disease. I understand that you're not a bad person trying to be good. You're a sick person who should try to be better. I ask you to educate yourself on the disease itself so you have a better understanding that it is a disease. It is a physical allergy that comes with that. And if you had more education as far as what the addict actually goes through on a mental status and a physical status, then you would understand why they do what they do, or we do what we do. I'll give you a little bit more clarity, because a lot of moms will say, or dads will say, what could I have done different? And I tell them this. Say your son came to you one day and he's coming home from the doctor and says, Mom, Dad, I have cancer. I don't think that you would say, or diabetes or whatever it may be, there's nothing you could have done different either. It's the same type of thing. A lot of people say it's a hereditary disease. A lot of people say it's from different upbringings. But I want you to know I've seen more people overdose and more people in treatment who come from white-collar families living in, $2-3 million houses than I've seen in, any type of other setting. Now, this disease does not discriminate. It does not care about your race, your religion, your bank account, none of that. It's the only disease that tells you don't have one. It's the only disease that makes you think that you can't live without it. And it's the only disease that gets stronger as your recovery gets stronger. And I know it's very scary, but there's no cure to this, but there is a solution. So you say no and you let them know, listen, I love you, I hate your disease, I'm going to work a program myself, and that's going to be scary to them because they're going to be found out. Their disease hates that. I talk about the disease as it's a person itself because for me I have to look at it as somebody who's much stronger than me, and if I put down if I start using my will and put down the higher power that's got me through this, then it will take me back. Like they always say, like my disease is outside doing push-ups while I'm in here being a better person and succeeding in life. So you say no, you let them know you're going to go to a program, but you let them know this. I will be here for you when you decide to get help. I am not God. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm your mother, father, husband, whatever it may be. And what I can do to love you the most is to detach with love. To let you know that when you're ready to take that course into recovery, I'll be here for you. But besides that, I can't trust you. I don't understand what's coming out of your mouth sometimes. I don't know you anymore. But I miss you and I love you. And when you're ready, I'm ready. That's the first step to all this. And I know it sounds difficult, and it is difficult. I don't think people understand the amount of stress and uncertainty that comes with being a loved one of an addict. Unfortunately, we're stigmatized as the guy under the bridge with the cardboard sign that says I'll work for food. That's not the addict of 2016. That is the lack of education in America. I call America the agnostic nation. Agnostic is Latin for without knowledge. But what pisses me off is that no one wants to pick a book up and better understand something that has now become a national crisis. And I use the word crisis, not epidemic. Epidemic is a regional contagious disease. And I'll tell you right now that addiction is not contagious. You cannot get it through sharing needles. You can't sexually transmit addiction or recovery. But you can, recovery is contagious. And I know that first and foremost. You cannot work your loved one's program either. If they're living in your home, you can set boundaries. You can say, listen, I need, even make them a slip if you have to. I need you to go to meetings every night. I need to know that you have a sponsor, but you can't get into their program because it's not your responsibility. You can hold them accountable, but I ask that you do that in a safe setting that understands him. So if you're not if you don't have this disease or you're not affiliated with it, it's kind of like having a son who now speaks fluent French and you don't understand a word of it. So he's now going to meetings, he's now meeting people, but he's going to have a new perception of life. He's going to understand things different, and he's going to come home and you're going to be hearing blah, 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 blah. Did you get high? Are you lying to me? Did you really go? These are the things that like piss us off because we're really trying to do the right thing, and then we come home and get interrogated. And that's not your fault. I mean, I would too if my daughter was to, get in a situation like that. Sober homes is why, if you're in the Northeast area, Oxford homes, I was in several of them, well over a dozen. And the way it was good for me was because I would come home to a group of men who understood the disease and they understood how to talk to me. I know every time I went home, when I was living at my parents at 28 years old, I would go to a meeting, I would really do the right thing, and then as soon as I walked in the door, did you really go? And immediately threw me off, went straight back into addict mode and said, F it, I'm going to go get high anyway. They don't think I'm doing the right thing. So yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, is let them know that you love them, but you hate the disease. Educate yourself. Encourage people around them to educate each other about it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You'll be surprised. A lot of politicians, award-winning actors, actresses, teachers are all in recovery that you would never know about. And that's good. That's their anonymous program. But we need to get more people out there that are open about it so they can share that it helps. You have all these statistics on how Suboxone works, and it's so much better than 12-step or Celebrate Recovery. And how do you base those numbers or compare those numbers to an anonymous program? You can't. You don't know how many people are actually in the rooms. You don't know how many people are actually, in Celebrate Recovery and have found success. It's not something you can go and tally up the numbers and compare it to a Suboxone maintenance program. While we're on that topic, I'm sure you all would like to know my opinion on Suboxone. Just so you know, it was created for pregnant females who needed to get off of drugs short term. So when it was created for a 4 to 5 day, up to 7 day use. Some of the biggest drug dealers in America are doctors. And what they do is they'll subscribe people for years and years. And if it works for you, great. I'm not knocking it. But I am saying, how much freedom can you really have when you're still dependent on a drug or a substance that's mind and body altering? Having said that, I know a lot of people who live successful lives on Suboxone. But I know a lot of people who live successful lives and are enjoying every minute of it in an abstinent-based program. Suboxone saved my life. I needed it during detox, but it was about 4 days into it was when they cut me off, and I started working a program. So if you're given Suboxone, my only opinion is this. Try to pair it and parallel it with a program of your choice, whatever that may be. 12 steps isn't for everybody. Smart recovery, I don't know enough about it to say it works or doesn't work. I don't care. As long as it's some type of parallel program with your methadone, your Suboxone, your Vivitrol, Ambuse, to me they're all Band-Aids, but are very vital for some people to get and stay on that right path into recovery. Again, this is my opinion. A lot of you are going to argue with me about this. You know me, I don't care. But I feel that, America is offering people a longer prison sentence by having them on a methadone maintenance plan, which ultimately gets into your bone marrow. And when the person decides that they don't want to live that life anymore, it's the most painful detox they'll ever feel in their life. And you're just taken away from the biggest gift I've ever got in recovery, which is freedom. Freedom from any mind and body altering substance. And I couldn't find that in Suboxone. And to be honest with you, when I had Suboxone, I would, one thing would piss me off. I didn't have a program aligned, and I would go sell it and get heroin in exchange for it. Again, if it's working for you, great. I just think we need to change the approach we have with people who are newly coming in to seek treatment. That, Suboxone is not the end-all. It is not the cure-all. Yes, there are numbers proven that it's helping people, but when you compare it to 44 million members of an anonymous program who are finding success with abstinence-based, I just find it hard to argue why one would go after the other. So I'm going to answer a few questions if you guys have any, whether it be on enabling maintenance programs or how to parallel that with another program to get off of the maintenance, because I don't find freedom and maintenance go in the same category. Hi, Catherine. Also, guys, there's a lot of people watching right now. Can you please let me know where you're from? If you get a chance, go to RJ Veed and follow. We're going to be doing more lives. I haven't been on here in a while. A lot of progression and growth with the business here at Reliance Treatment Center. A lot of great stuff happening. So, but I'm back, and we're going to do more lives. I'm going to irritate some more people, and that's what I enjoy. Jason Bishop, yes, Vivitrol. He says, Vivitrol saved my life. It's nothing like Suboxone or Methadone. He's 100% right. Vivitrol, I think, again, paralleled with a program, is amazing. I've seen it help so many people. It helps with the urges. Same with Ambuse. Those things are 30 to 60 day cravings, but it's not designed for, here's your shot, good luck. You can't treat it like that. You have to treat it as, a little bit of extra incentive for finding some progress with your recovery. Brandy Ends asks, is feeding them or bringing them food enabling? No, that's you having the natural instinct to take care of your child. I don't think that's enabling. No, it's not putting a drinking drug in their body. If you hand them food or water or whatever it may be, that's good. It lets them know that you're still there for them and you love them. I mean, come on, guys. We're human beings. A lot of us start using because we've spent our whole lives seeking acceptance somewhere in our lives, right? For me, it was high school. I went from Catholic school into public school in 9th grade, and it was terrifying. I didn't know who I should hang out with or if anybody. And that first drink, all of a sudden, I was, I would have run for class president, star quarterback, all those things in my head. So, yeah, of course, feed them, love them, but don't enable their disease. There's a big difference. You don't want to push anybody away. We're already hurting enough as it is. We really don't need our family members saying, get lost, get out of my life. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is we'll be here for you to support you when it comes time for you to decide, because it's up to the person to decide. I went to 26 treatment centers, but the 27th one, I decided to do it for me, not my kids, not the bills, not the law. I was so broke, spiritually broken and emotionally and physically shot out that I had to do it. But again, I didn't get to that point until my mom and dad said no to me. It's a very slippery slope, right, Kathy? I mean, it's tough. Food is good, money not so much, right? I have parents all the time, their kids are down here. How do I feed my son? A lot of times in early recovery, there's a lot of stress in getting a job, and we do need the support from family. So you have gift cards. You can, I don't recommend Western Union or anything like that involves cash. I would also ask for receipts. I mean, that is part of us being accountable. Listen, just because we're getting clean doesn't mean we're saints and that everything that we did in our past is gone. Those bridges are still burning. A lot of people's lives are still, have been devastated from our wrath. And that is part of the program, is to make that right. But in the beginning, we do need love and support from everybody that we can. Yeah, you can sell gift cards too, but listen, again, you can't play God. If the person's going to decide to sell their gift cards for dope, that's on them. That's not your problem. That's not your responsibility. You did your part. Well, Trevor, you say they will sell anything, they can't help it. The problem is that once you put the drink and the drug down and you're in a recovery program, it is a decision and a choice at that time. Once the drug is no longer, you're obsessing about it, you decide to relapse. The only way you can ever relapse is sober, if that makes sense. You know, no one can ever relapse is already using. It's not a relapse. If the person's obsessing about using, we can turn anything into money. We can turn anything into the heroin or whatever we choose to use. Again, that's something that, you know, it's a slippery slope. If you send them a gift card and they don't have food that day and they sold it, then they don't have food that day. Next time they ask, you tell them no. Clint, if you go back in the video a little bit further, we just talked about Suboxone a little bit. If you guys want to do a whole segment on that, we can. Again, encourage you guys, please let me know where you're from. I do have a radio show now. It's recoveryradio.fm with my really dear friend James Sweezy. Follow James Sweezy. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, we talk about topics like this. I think we're up to 1 million posts reach. We've only had 3 shows. We talk about things like Suboxone and maintenance and enabling and everything. So if you guys get a chance, I know tomorrow night is our next show. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have viewers from all over the world. You know, a lot of great people on the show. We bring doctors on. We bring psychiatrists on. Basically make sure we can answer every question possible that you guys may have. Hey, Lynn from Baltimore. Here's a good question from Doreen Swerdloff. Sorry, Doreen. What about after rehab if they transfer to halfway house or sober living? Is it safe to help them set up house? Okay, so if it's a reputable and a well-ran sober home, and let's get that right too, guys, halfway house is for re-entry programs from prison. There's a difference between a halfway house and a sober home. A sober home is managed and pretty much designed only for people in early recovery. A lot of halfway houses are designed for people in re-entering society after prison. But to answer your question, yeah, I had to get help from my parents when I first moved in. I didn't have I didn't have a job. But that only lasted 2 weeks because every day I was out there looking for work. You know, I chased my life of success, my life in recovery, if not more than I chased the drug when I was, like, you know, in dire need for it. So set boundaries. So yeah, I'll help you for 2 weeks. If you're calling me for food, you better have food. But I also need to know where you went that day for work. I need to know you actively went out and you were seeking employment. John, am I enabling if I don't bother with what choices he makes? I mean, he is responsible for his actions. From Nanacoke, PA. His choices are his choices. All I ask, again, is if you educate yourself and you work your own program, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, they will literally give you the tools to handle all those situations without feeling guilty. So we can't make other people's decisions for them. As much as we would love to, I mean, I'm sure if I asked every American or anybody in the world, would you rather have world peace or a cure for your loved one's disease, they would say a cure. You know, I don't see either or in the near future, unfortunately. But, you know, we have to, once they're in recovery, we have to respect their recovering process. You know, a lot of us have, you know, damaged a lot of lives. please don't expect them to immediately want to make an amends, or it's not going to be a genuine amends. This is an opportunity for them to find themselves and live their life, but more importantly, as the family member, it's an opportunity for you to rebuild your marriage or your home or your bills or your account. Most importantly, your serenity and peace and your sleep at night that you've lost for so many years. So what you want to do is work on yourself. Once you understand you can't help or save them, you can't save them, it gives you a little bit more incentive. What can I do for me? And ultimately, that's the most important thing. What can I do for me? Which would ultimately help them out. It works both ways. Blake, I love you, man. Check out Blake Evans C. He says, look up the short book, Detaching with Love. Great explanation of detaching while supporting the person. Yes, please, please. Go to Devin C. He will let you know exactly, Blake Evans C. I'm sorry. He'll let you know exactly where to go to get that book. But, I mean, if you guys look at it, there's hundreds and there's thousands of groups on social media of family members supporting each other. And a lot of people don't know they're out there. They're out there. Do not feel ashamed or to blame for this. There's nothing you could have done different to avoid your loved one of becoming addicted. I am no one to say that anyone's an addict. Only the person will know themselves. But we can see it. Sorry, got a great question. Trevor says, bring them home. Doreen, yes, great book. The Four Agreements is also a great book. Question mark, do we bring them home? Okay, so we're people dealing with the disease of addiction. We're not criminals overnight trying to destroy people. We're really not. A lot of times it's a trial by error. Yes, let them stay home until the disease starts to affect your family or you become unmanageable because of their disease. And then at that point, it's time for them to move on to something else. Hey, I got my guest here. So we are talking about enabling. And you guys wanted to meet somebody? Say hi. There's a lot of people.
Hi, my name is Ernest. I was actually just watching the show. Thought I'd come in and stop by and say hello to my good friend RJ.
And that was our buddy Mike, who just woke up on the couch. No, Ernest, we're just talking about enabling, Suboxone maintenance, all the top issues that we come across working in this industry, but more importantly, as people in recovery.
Okay.
The last question was, do we bring them home? Do we allow them to come home? I just said that basically if it's a trial by error, if they're working a program, you can hold them accountable. You can't save their lives. If they start to make your life unmanageable, then it's goodbye. You know, we're here for you when you want help with your recovery program, but we're not going to let you help us lose sleep anymore, basically.
Nice. One of the things that RJ spoke about earlier in the segment was about setting boundaries. And I think that is the key, and for the families and the loved ones, the husbands, wives, children, to actually get involved in a program themselves. And by getting in these programs, they will help you navigate through the process of how to live with and deal with and talk to and love an addict.
Right. And Trevor, you actually asked while they're using, should they stay in your home? If you like the chaos, if you enjoy being robbed and lied to, yes. But there's too many resources out there or people who can get them into a sober environment for you to keep having a life that's so unmanageable by someone else's disease, if that makes sense. That's up to you. I say no. I know when I was living at home or with a loved one and I was using, I was robbing and lying and stealing from them, and they were losing sleep at night, and they were coming to the hospital when I overdosed, or they were watching me on the news when I committed a crime. That's no way to live. Like I said to you guys, I'm an open book, so if you're in a certain state or an area and you don't have or know of the resources, you can message me directly, and I'll let you know. I'll look it up. I'll take time out to look up local, whether it's an Oxford home, sober homes, meetings. I can tell you right now, the reason why we're in the meetings is because I can go to a meeting tonight. I can tell someone, hey, I'm a newcomer, I have nowhere to live, I'm hungry, that I won't go home that night hungry or sleeping on the street, basically. That's how we work. So I personally think that letting them stay in your home while they're using is dangerous. What do you think?
I agree. One of the things that work for me is, well, here's the thing about us as addicts. As long as we know that we have somewhere to go or something to fall back on, the harder it is for us to actually make a decision to do something to change our lives. And this is where the enabling comes in. It wasn't until all doors were closed to me that I actually started to make a decision to change my life. That's not saying that my mom didn't love me and didn't want to help me. It was just that I had to get to a place where, I had nothing to fall back on, and I really had to come to a place and make a decision that I wanted my life to change. So if you're allowing someone to live in your home and continue to use, that is enabling.
Right, and David Rosano just said, without help, families struggle with boundaries. They feel guilty. Guilt is uncomfortable. Guess what relieves it? More enabling. And so the cycle goes on. Now, that sounds exactly like heroin, active heroin use without the drug, the actual drug of heroin. So when I tell families, like, you're addicted to your child, and they get mad at me, that comment explains it in all aspects. So basically, if you're getting comfortability from enabling an addict, what's the difference of your lifestyle and theirs? If you're losing sleep, okay, so let's say this. Say as an active heroin addict, I lose sleep, I lose relationships, I lose serenity, I lose belongings. As a family member with someone who's actively using, who's enabling them and allowing them in their life, they're losing sleep, they're losing marriages, they're losing jobs, they're losing sleep. So basically the only reason I got into the program was because my life was unmanageable. So if you're not on the drug, but your life's unmanageable because of someone else's use, clearly that describes why and explains why it's a family disease. And that's why there are Nor-Anon and Al-Anon meetings out there, amongst other things, churches, Celebrate Recovery, that can help you as well. Right?
Yes.
My parents were able to rest when I was in jail. Yeah. Scary. So a couple more questions, guys, and I'm going to get off of here. But feel free, like I said, please share this if you feel it will help anybody. Comment whether you agree or disagree. Either way, I'll learn from it. That's what we're here for, to learn, to educate ourselves. I don't know nearly enough to let everybody know how to go sleep at night and how to live a life of serenity and peace. I'm more along the lines of the guy who's in recovery. But I do go to Al-Anon. I do try to understand the family side of it. And leave a comment, like it, share it, because the more shares we get, the more people will help. I've seen more relationships get built on these live feeds than anything, and then people ask me, why are you always going live? It's because I just connected about 15 families last night who are now helping each other and supporting each other, and that's why I do it. If you don't like what I'm doing, I encourage you to unfollow and or block. I don't need people on here who are going to help the stigma or encourage people not to share hope and share a message. But if you do like this, I ask you, share it all over the place. I'm not selling anything. This is just free information. Just me and some good friends who want to help, and what was freely given to us, we want to give back to you. So I love you guys. You want to say goodbye?
Love you guys.
And God bless. Again, any questions, message me directly.
www.stopfryingyourbrain.com.